Thank you very much. Good morning. Can you hear me okay? I want to thank everybody for your time and interest being here, this most important issue, what's going on in our country. Let me begin by introducing Alejandro Barranco from Central Orange County, what I believe is the face of Central OC, hardworking, middle-class individuals, all of us just looking to earn the American dream. Alejandro, you served 4 years in the Marines. You took a note to do what?
To defend and protect the Constitution.
Defend and protect this country. Were you willing to make the ultimate sacrifice to defend this great nation?
Yeah, of course.
So as a Marine, and you're always going to be Marine, right now you're on reserve, but you can be called at any time to defend this great nation in time of crisis. Tell me about your two other brothers.
Yeah, they're still on active duty, currently on.
And they're also Marines.
Yes.
And they've also taken an oath to this Constitution, to this nation, to defend this country.
Yes.
And if need, make the ultimate sacrifice for this country.
Yes.
You're a Marine. Tell me how you feel President Trump got elected, okay, with the pledge of deporting criminals. Your father, Narciso, is he a criminal?
No, he's not.
How long has he been in this country?
For over 30 years.
Never arrested?
Never.
Never a ticket? Tell me what happened to him.
He was violently detained and attacked on Saturday, June 21st in Santa Ana, California while doing his job.
So he's not part of that 75% President Trump was talking about. Actually, he is part of that 75%. He's not a criminal, and now President Trump is stopping non-criminals and trying to deport them. So your father raised 3 Marines. Every one of your siblings is a Marine, including yourself. You know, Alejandro, they make movies about people like you. Everybody in your family, a proud warrior, a proud American patriot, ready to lay down their lives for this great country. And yet, your father is undocumented after 30 years in this country. What do the other Marines think about this that you know?
They've all been very supportive. They always have my back, and they always offer their support.
Are there other Marines that you know of that maybe have the same situation you do, which is their parents are also undocumented?
Yes, yeah, I know plenty.
How many Latinos do you know in the area where you were serving as a Marine are Latinos?
The people I served with, at least I believe half of them are from Latino background.
So in your area that you served, about half of those Marines were Latinos.
Yes.
And they're supportive of your situation?
Yes, very much.
Latinos, whites, non-Latinos, are they supportive of you and your situation with your father right now?
Yes.
So you're here today in Washington, D.C. You took time from your work, from your daily schedule to be here today. What do you want Congress to hear? What is your message to Congress today?
First of all, I just want to thank them for the opportunity for sharing or being able to share my story, my father's story. And I just want them to know that my parents, and just like a lot of other members of our community, are hardworking. They just come here for a better life to raise children like myself and my brothers who are patriots and will do anything and give everything for this great country.
Despite what happened to your dad, are you still loyal to this great country?
Yes, of course.
You still want to do everything you can, including sacrificing your life for this great country?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now what I'd like to do is give you the opportunity to make your statement?
Yeah.
To make your opening statement. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alejandro Barranco. I am a proud United States Marine veteran and the son of Narciso Barranco, who was violently attacked and detained by federal immigration agents. On Saturday, June 21st, 2025, in Santa Ana, California, my father was working the landscaping job he has proudly held since the 1990s. As he worked, he noticed masked men approaching him and was quickly surrounded by men who did not identify themselves and never presented any type of warrant. Terrified, he ran. They chased him through the parking lot and into a crowded street. They pointed guns at him, pepper sprayed him, they tackled him to the ground and kicked him. They restrained and handcuffed him. They dragged him into an unmarked vehicle and pushed him into the back seat. As many have already seen, while several agents were holding him down, another beat him repeatedly in the neck and head area, over and over and over again. His cries of fear and pain I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Growing up, my father was always working from sun up to sundown. He always did his best to provide for our family, even if it meant working 7 days a week and extremely long hours. We always had food on the table, a roof over our heads, and good clothes to wear to school. He taught us to always be good people and do our best to give back to this great country. He taught us to respect our country and to always be thankful for all the opportunities we would have growing up in America. Because of what he taught me, I worked hard and was the first in my family to graduate high school and eventually go to college. This was a dream come true for my parents. While in college, I kept asking myself if I was doing the very best I could, wondering if I could do maybe more for myself and my family. That's when I looked into joining the military. I decided to join the Marine Corps out of the love I have for this country and to bring honor to my family name. When I told my dad I was going to enlist, he cried with pride. He told me to give everything I had because we should do anything and everything to give back to our country. In 2021, I deployed to Kabul to support the withdrawal of our troops and the evacuation of U.S. personnel there. It was a difficult assignment, but I was proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with my fellow Marines. Some who I served with made the ultimate sacrifice, and I helped carry their caskets home. While I am now a veteran, our family's dedication to this country continues. Today, both of my younger brothers are also enlisted in the Marine Corps and are currently serving on active duty. My father tells everyone, all three of my sons are U.S. Marines. He is so proud that he raised sons who wanted to serve this country. I believe my brothers and I are a reflection of who my father really is, a law-abiding, proud, and patriotic man. My father has no criminal record and should have never been attacked by these agents. He supported his family and paid taxes. He is a human being, but he was not treated with the basic dignity he deserved. He has always made sure to do his best in giving back to his neighbors, his community, and is deeply devoted to this country. He supported this country just like we all do. That is who he is. That is who our country punched, threw in detention, and is trying to deport. What I saw in that video that day broke my heart. Since my father was detained, it has been a nightmare for my family. He was held in a cage with 70 to 100 other people, one toilet, no shower, no change of clothes. People were in work uniforms because they were literally taken while just trying to do their jobs and supporting their families and communities. When he was sent to another facility, Adelanto, conditions were still grim. He went 14 hours without water, the plumbing failed, dirty blankets made people sick. When he finally got a hearing, the government attorney arrived unprepared. If we didn't have a lawyer, we wouldn't have even known he had a court date. My father was lucky, but thousands are not. My father was eventually granted bond and came home, but the trauma that day and the brokenness of this system remains in our hearts, and we are still under a cloud. My father is an outstanding member of the community and should have never been attacked the way he was. The agents had no warrant for him and had no reason to chase or beat him. He was simply working his job, the same he has done since the day he arrived here more than 30 years ago. There was no reason to target him other than he was a landscaper and a Latino. As a veteran with combat training who has been in deeply stressful military actions, I can say with certainty, if I had treated another person like these agents treated my father, I would have been severely disciplined, if not court-martialed. The current system is broken. Cruel and indiscriminate raids are tearing families apart and punishing hardworking people who contribute to our communities every day. My father, like so many others, deserves a fair chance to stay in this country he calls home. The country is better because of people like my dad. It is time our policies reflected that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandro. So your father was profiled because of occupation, location, and physical appearance. I want to thank you for your testimony, and Congressman Correa for inviting you to the forum. And this is exactly why we're having this Congressional Oversight Forum. In a few minutes after witnesses finish their testimonies, we will have a couple of more questions for you. Thank you again, Alejandro.
Thank you.
Now I would like to move and recognize Congressman Magaziner to introduce his panelists in order for him to be able to provide his testimony.
Thank you to my friend Congresswoman Ramirez for your leadership and in empathy and determination in this very challenging time. It's my honor to introduce our panelist, Serene Shabaya, a civil rights attorney and the executive director of the National Immigration Project of the National Lawyers Guild, an organization that offers legal and technical assistance to immigrant communities and advocates. I was particularly interested to have Ms. Shabaya here because she represents two families with U.S. citizen children who have been deported to Honduras against the wishes of their parents. And one of the fears that I think many of us have that is being borne out is that the Trump administration is not stopping with undocumented people who are criminals. They are not stopping with undocumented people in general. They are not stopping with legal non-citizens, visa holders, green card holders. They are also deporting U.S. citizens as well. It is a slippery slope. It is one that we need to call out. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Shabaya to share their stories and any other insights that she has. Welcome, and thank you for your work.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. And I very much appreciate your focus on this critical topic. My organization, the National Immigration Project, has members in all 50 states, including community groups, legal groups, attorneys, and advocates who work within immigrant communities. As part of our work, we facilitate regional networks focused on supporting rapid response work in under-resourced places, which has given us a particularly deep view into enforcement trends around the country. And what we are seeing right now is truly shocking. There is no other word for it. We are witnessing families being torn apart by masked federal agents, U.S. citizens being deported without the consent of their parents, working people abducted off the streets and disappeared into unmarked vehicles, and violence against civic and labor leaders protesting peacefully to protect their neighbors, friends, and communities. This is an extreme and dangerous abuse of power. Here are just a few examples of recent enforcement trends that are playing out in communities across the country. The ISAP check-in arrests that Congresswoman Ramirez mentioned, people who have been routinely checking in for years, being called in across the country for irregular check-ins, arrested and detained despite no changes in their situation. And this is exactly what happened to the two moms with U.S. citizen children that our organization represents. They were called in under false pretenses with actively deceitful requests. One of them was told that her ankle monitor needed checking. The other one was told that they needed to verify something about her children. And they were both instructed to bring their U.S. citizen children with their passports with them to the check-in. So this was clearly a very premeditated situation. They arrived, and within less than a couple of hours, they were disappeared into hotel rooms in Alexandria, where family, lawyers, one of them, in fact, had her immigration lawyer in the building with her, asking about her. Nobody was able to get in touch. Each of them was given about 40 seconds in one case to talk to their spouse. Nobody was given an option to make arrangements for their children. And in one of the family's case, there was actually a custodian who was ready to take the child, a legal custodian, at all relevant times. And ICE was very actively hiding the moms and the children and not allowing people to connect with them, not allowing them to have the conversations that are needed to make arrangements for their kids. And one of the kids in the situation has very rare stage 4 cancer and is undergoing treatment. ICE knew that, and in the other family, the mom was pregnant, and ICE also knew that. And it didn't stop them from undertaking these behaviors. They were deported within a very short period of time. And this is not the only case. We have since heard about a number of other situations where parents with U.S. citizen children have been treated in a similar manner. And it doesn't, stop with U.S. citizens. We're also seeing people with strong pathways to relief, such as kids who are eligible for special immigrant status because of being abused, abandoned, or neglected by a parent, also being disappeared and deported. We're seeing people who have been in the United States for decades, including a father of 2 U.S. citizen children with Marfan syndrome, a rare genetic disorder that causes congenital heart failure and progressive blindness, who's been in this country since 1996, who is also the sole care provider for the 2 kids. The sole provider for that family and the 2 kids. And the extremely rapid-fire turnaround on deportations with kind of disappearing people or putting them in crowded hold cells where lawyers can't access them and the families can't access them seems designed to stop people from pursuing legal remedies that are available to them, as was the case with both of the moms who had legal remedies available to them that would have triggered automatic stays on deportation while they pursued their cases. We're also seeing community arrests and improper uses of criminal charges, such as pretextual uses of warrants for unlawful entry years later for people who have TPS or are in the process of seeking asylum. We're seeing a pattern of abusive charges against judges even. So like there was a news story about a Minnesota judge that apparently the federal government was considering prosecuting because they were allowing for remote hearings. We're also seeing workplace I-9 warrants being used as a pretext to come into restaurants and places where people gather just in order to round up anybody who is there with lots of collateral arrests and detention in horrible conditions such as the ones that Mr. Barranco just described. The administration has fully leaned into a dragnet approach to enforcement and detention that is tearing families apart and fundamentally destroying any semblance of due process or values in the system. At the same time, it has undermined internal agency accountability mechanisms and encouraged its agencies to engage in behavior that is patently unlawful. Beyond being wasteful, expensive, and cruel, that approach predictably leads to abuse and lawlessness, which is what we are seeing today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I now want to recognize myself to introduce Jesse Francois, the Associate Director of Policy from the National Immigrant Justice Center, NIJZ. Mr. Flansbaugh is dedicated to advancing the legal and human rights of immigrants through federal policy and advocacy at the National Immigration Justice Center. He is leading legislative affairs and research initiatives, overseeing investigations into rights abuses within the U.S. immigration system. Francois previously directed FOIA projects at Open the Government, leveraging laws to enhance public access to information for a more transparent, accountable government. I'm thankful for his and NIJC support in the work on immigration issues, including a letter we wrote to DHS and ICE with the support of 51 members opposing Trump's administration's ongoing efforts to expand immigration detention capacity by awarding new detention contracts using funds not approved by Congress. Jesse, I would like to now introduce you to be able to give your testimony for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman and members of Congress, for holding this really incredibly important forum. I'm Jesse Francois with the National Immigrant Justice Center. So NIJC serves people throughout the country, but has a focus on the Midwest region and serves people facing rampant rights violations that are being carried out by ICE and people facing inhumane conditions in immigration detention. And today I'd like to discuss 2 issues. One, the rampant abuses that people are facing by ICE, and then also the egregious misuse of funds and overspending beyond congressionally approved levels by ICE. So first on abuses, in 2018, NIJC sued with other civil rights groups over violations of the INA and Fourth Amendment protections after raids occurred in Chicago. And during these raids, ICE officers, they failed to comply with a very limited warrantless arrest authority before making many of the arrests. And then in 2022, the government agreed to a settlement agreement in a class action lawsuit called Castaño-Nava versus DHS, and ICE issued a nationwide policy setting forth requirements and limits for making warrantless arrests and vehicle stops. But, of course, this Trump administration quickly violated the Castellano-Nava settlement within a week of its new term in January of this year. And in March of this year, NIJC joined other rights groups to file a motion to enforce, documenting 22 examples of violations of the terms of that settlement, stemming from ICE and other federal agents targeting the Chicago area just days after the inauguration. And we now know that ICE has instructed agents to arrest as many people as possible when carrying out enforcement actions. And in June, according to internal emails that were reviewed by The Guardian, senior immigration officials instructed rank-and-file officers to, quote, turn the creative knob up to 11 when it comes to enforcement, including by interviewing and potentially arresting people they called collaterals. And those emails, they followed Secretary Noem and Stephen Miller pressing immigration officials to ratchet up immigration-related arrests to at least 3,000 people a day. And so this practice, we know, has consistently resulted in profiling along racial and ethnic lines, recently confirmed by Tom Homan's own remarks. And the impact of this lawless conduct is really staggering. In one story, NIJC client named Abel Orozco is one of the 22 people challenging the administration for violating the Castellano-Nava settlement when they were arrested. Abel, he has been in the U.S. for nearly 30 years. He was abducted by half a dozen armed agents, ICE agents, in a case of mistaken identity. Once ICE realized Abel was not their target, they refused to let him go, even as he went into an asthma attack. 6 months later, he's still trapped in detention, now in a county jail in Kentucky. Abel, he owns his own business, which is now in jeopardy. His wife is battling cancer while he fights for just a full day in court and his due process rights. There are, of course, thousands of people like Abel facing the harsh crackdown from this administration on people who have been here for decades. So lastly, just on overspending and transferring emergency funds, we've seen that in prioritizing mass detention and these sweeping raids, the administration has siphoned funds from emergency services, putting communities across the country at risk of devastating disasters. Just on July 10th, Senator Murphy released a letter opposing a request to move more than $430 million from FEMA, USCIS, and other programs within DHS to cover costs relating to the overspending and self-inflicted shortfalls, including $212 million to ICE. So in the wake of the tragic floods in Texas, it's really unconscionable that Congress would approve more money for ICE from FEMA accounts. The latest reprogramming request from ICE comes on the heels of the historic influx of cash from the reconciliation bill, making the agency the biggest law enforcement agency in the country with a larger budget than the FBI, DEA, ATF, and U.S. Marshals combined. So in the end, the passage of that bill gave billions in slush funds while also caving to executive overreach and abuse of authority. Now with that money approved, Congress really must do everything in its power to end ICE impunity. This means blocking any additional funds through the appropriations process and conducting vigorous oversight, including visits and advocating on behalf of people in detention. And it's really vital for Congress to push for an end to ICE overspending, end the impunity, and work to protect constitutional protections. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse, for your testimony. I now want to recognize Congressman Dan Goldman to introduce his panelists.
Thank you very much to my friend Congresswoman Ramirez and Congressman Magaziner for joining me in organizing this shadow hearing. It is a shame that we have to be here in a shadow hearing to hear from these witnesses who are on the front lines and have experienced firsthand in many cases the inhumane, horrific, and anti-American immigration policy that this administration is moving forward. The three of us are on the Homeland Security Committee. Last week, we did have an official hearing in our committee led by the Republican majority. They focused yet again on the Biden administration's immigration policy. Last I checked, President Biden has not been president for 7 months, and what we are dealing with here today and what is going on around the country is at minimum worthy of oversight, to say the least. And I am very pleased to be able to introduce Carla Osalasa, who is the Managing Director of the Immigration Practice at the Bronx Defenders. Carla manages a team of more than 50 advocates, including attorneys, social workers, and legal advocates, providing wraparound immigration representation to New Yorkers facing criminal, family, and civil proceedings. Of course, Carla's job is nearly impossible now with the number of immigrants who are being swept up in this dragnet. But we're grateful that Carla is here and on the front lines working so hard to provide legal representation for so many of those who are unjustly swept up in this immigration policy. And Carla, I would turn it over to you for your opening statement.
Thank you, Congressman. My name is Carla Solasa, and I'm the Managing Director of the Immigration Practice at the Bronx Defenders, a holistic public defender in the South Bronx. Nearly a third of Bronx residents were born outside of the U.S., and many face growing threat of detention and deportation. Our team helps over 2,000 immigrant New Yorkers each year through early screening, risk assessments, and full legal representation. We also co-lead the New York Immigrant Family Unity Project, NYFUP, the first universal representation program for detained immigrants. Through NYFUP, we represent about a third of the people in detained deportation proceedings in New York City. I'm here today to sound the alarm about a dramatic escalation in ICE's attacks on immigrant New Yorkers and their communities. This has led to widespread human rights violations, and just yesterday, Secretary Noem vowed to, quote, double down in targeting New York City. Earlier this year, as you all know, hundreds of Venezuelans, including two of our clients, were disappeared into Secot, a notorious Salvadoran prison, after President Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act. Our clients were awaiting hearings to present their asylum claims. In the past, over the last decade, I was able to assure clients that ICE could not deport them before the court proceedings were concluded. That's a very common fear. That is no longer true. I cannot give that assurance anymore. On March 15, after a federal court ordered DHS to hold removals under the Alien Enemies Act, my team went to bed relieved, only to wake up to learn that the order had been ignored and our clients had been unlawfully renditioned to Secot. This breach of due process is not terrifying. Not just terrifying, it is lawless. We're also seeing ICE conduct mass arrests at immigration court hearings. This is unprecedented. The purpose of civil detention is to ensure attendance at court. Yet ICE is now targeting people who are doing exactly that, showing up. These tactics appear designed not to enforce the law, but to punish immigrants and coerce them into accepting deportation. And when people stay home out of fear, they're ordered removed in absentia, leaving them vulnerable to rapid deportation at any future encounter with ICE. After arrests, whether at court or in the community, people are being held at 26 Federal Plaza, an office building, in appalling conditions for days or even weeks. Our clients report overcrowding so severe that people sleep sitting up. They lack food, medical care, and access to legal counsel. ICE has also failed to produce people for their detained immigration hearings and blocked members of Congress from inspecting the site. Conditions don't improve once transferred. ICE has quickly expanded detention capacity in New York City from around 80 beds to over 1,200 beds, with another 1,000 beds reportedly planned to open imminently. These facilities have opened with no meaningful oversight or infrastructure. For example, one of our clients, a diabetic man detained at Delaney Hall, was denied insulin and fed only a few slices of bread over 24 hours. His glucose spiked dangerously, and he was found laying on the floor by staff. And yet, ICE did not release him until ordered to do so by a court. Access to counsel is also worsening at these detention centers. Detained immigrants with strong legal claims can't reach attorneys, while simultaneously enduring intense pressure by ICE officers to accept voluntary departure. At the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, a Federal Bureau of Prison facility ICE is now using, Lawyers have been turned away, and legal calls must be scheduled far in advance, are frequently canceled, and have poor audio quality. ICE has also resumed the harmful practice of transferring New Yorkers to distant jails, including to jurisdictions that don't permit remote legal appearances. In just a few short months, we've seen a sharp, dangerous shift in ICE's operations. What's happening is not business as usual. It is a deliberate dismantling of due process and a campaign of fear targeting our communities. I'm grateful for the opportunity to bring these abuses to light. We need oversight, transparency, and accountability now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carla. And just to add a little color, I am one of those members of Congress who was denied access to that facility at 26 Federal Plaza. The deputy director of that field office told me that I was not permitted to go into the facility because it was not a detention facility. It was a processing center. The law requires Congress members to be given access unannounced to any facility that is detaining or otherwise housing immigrants, and certainly what you just described of your clients remaining there for days and days would seem to satisfy the plain language of being detained or otherwise housed. And so it is our strong belief that this is entirely unlawful, and we'll discuss this a little bit more when we get through, and I yield back to Congresswoman Ramirez.
Thank you, Congressman Goldman. What we see here is a pattern of what we know: unaccountable, unlawful, and unconstitutional. I want to start by just thanking all of our panelists and witnesses that are here today for providing your powerful testimony. We're going to now open the forum to questions, but before I do that, I want to recognize members of Congress who have joined us since we started. I want to thank Congresswoman Becca Balin from Vermont, who is with us today, Congresswoman Maxine Dexter from Oregon, who is also with us today, Congressman Troy Carter from Louisiana, who is with us, Congressman Raul Ruiz from California, who is also joining us today, Congresswoman Nanette Barragan from California, who is also joining us today. And Congressman Chuy Garcia from Illinois, who has also joined us today. Thank you all for being here. And in a few minutes, they will have an opportunity to also ask questions. So I want to go ahead and recognize myself to offer 5 minutes of questions to our panelists. And as I do that, I want to make sure that we put on record a reminder to Secretary Noem, assuming she in any way wants to pretend she is abiding by the Constitution. So I want to remind her that crossing a border to the U.S. to request the opportunity to apply for asylum is actually legal. Adjusting your status, if you have a pathway to do so, is also legal. Supporting immigrants to apply for asylum, TPS, parole, and other forms of relief is legal. Supporting people to become citizens is also legal. But I want to talk to you about what is illegal and what is unlawful. That's warrantless arrest. Many Latino individuals were impacted in Chicago by ICE's refusal to uphold the law and Constitution. So I want to ask you a question, Mr. Francois. Can you describe how ICE's warrantless arrests violate the Constitution? Additionally, as you answer that, what were the impacts of ICE's operations in Chicago as it relates to the Castañón-Nava settlement?
Thank you, Congresswoman. I should say that of course, the warrantless arrests continue, even as that litigation is still underway, challenging ICE for violating the Castañón-Nava settlement. But the way that they are carried out, well, ICE comes into cities like Chicago, often with in coordination with other federal agents. So there's been even more coordination with DEA, ATF, other federal agents, and sometimes they'll have an administrative warrant or a judicial warrant for a certain individual, but then they will essentially carry out the process of racial profiling, which from Thomas Homan's statements in Los Angeles, where he said that they do look at a person's appearance and they use that to determine whether to question somebody and then whether to carry out arrests of people based on that questioning. And we've seen that happen, and we've seen the dramatic impact of that, as is illustrative of the story of Abel Orozco, who is still in detention.
And Jesse, I want to talk about the ICE budget as well. The administration is spending hundreds of millions of dollars to execute its reckless mass deportation plans. It runs in responsible publicity campaigns where I have constituents and local colleagues calling me about how children in schools are saying they're not sleeping at night from the nightmares of those commercials. And unconstitutionally removing immigrants to foreign prisons without due process. So can you describe the impacts of DHS's massive budgetary increase will have on our immigrant communities? Especially, what does this mean for ICE detention?
Well, we know this reconciliation bill that was just passed and signed into law on July 4th includes around $45 billion just for ICE detention. That's on top of another $33 billion for ICE operations, which will mean more agents and more arrests, more sweeping arrests. But on detention, the $45 billion, putting that in comparison, ICE's annual budget just for detention has been around $4 billion, which is still exorbitant. But they are looking to have detention space for 100,000 beds. This is what this administration has said since day one. There are currently around 60,000 people on average daily basis in immigration detention. So we're looking at a really massive expansion of the detention system, and this is largely private prison companies that are behind the expansion and that look to benefit.
Which leads me to my last question for you, which is around private prison corporations. Just for the record, as we're doing this Congressional Oversight Forum, these are companies that have contributed to the president's election. These are companies that continue to profit from detaining our neighbors and loved ones, including, as you heard from our witnesses today, infants and students and United States citizens. In fact, Geo Group founder George Zoli, whose company is the country's largest private prison operator, told investors that the Geo Group was built for this unique moment in our history and the opportunities that it will bring. So, Mr. Flansbaugh, can you describe the influence private interests like Geo Group have on immigration policies and how money in politics poses a threat to our democracy?
Yeah, the two main giant companies, Geo Group and CoreCivic, spend millions every year lobbying for, particularly on appropriations bills, for more money for detention, more money for surveillance. Also, Geo Group also runs the ISAP program, so ankle monitors and wrist monitors. Geo Group also profits from that, but there are around 90% of the people currently in immigration detention are in privately operated facilities. So these companies generate billions from every year in profit from this system, and they lobby intensely in order to encourage more detention. And there are current administrative officials, including Pam Bondi, who formerly worked for companies like Geo Group, and Tom Homan also previously was paid by Geo Group.
Are literally making profits off of the pain of Alejandro's father and so many other people around the country. I want to thank you, Jesse, for your testimony. Alejandro, I want to say as I wrap up as well, I serve in the Veteran Affairs Committee. I want to thank you for your service. I want to thank your siblings for their service. And I certainly want to make sure that everyone knows that what happened to your father, unfortunately, is not a one-time horrible experience, but it's happening around the country. But we will hold this administration accountable. So thank you, Alejandro. With that, I want to go ahead and recognize Congressman Magaziner for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you again to our panelists. It's incredibly important that the American people hear from you and hear this, that Donald Trump lied to the American people and lied to his supporters when he said that he was going to go after serious criminals and gang members as the priority for immigration enforcement. That is not what his administration has been doing. They have been targeting innocent, hardworking people who have committed no crimes. Children with cancer, grandparents, veterans, students who express unpopular political opinions, even U.S. citizens. By their own data, 70% of the people that they have detained under this administration had no criminal record at all. And unfortunately, we are witnessing the beginning, I fear, of a slippery slope, because there are armies of masked men operating with no accountability, snatching up people left and right all across the United States, placing them in horrific conditions with no accountability and no due process. This is not what the American people want. People want a balanced approach to immigration that fixes the system by deporting those who have committed serious crimes while still treating those people who are here working for a living humanely, offering everyone due process, and allowing those who are here just trying to make a living, doing the right thing to apply for legal status. That's what people want. Ms. Zavaya, I want to get you on the record here. The family that you discussed earlier, the mother with 2 U.S. citizen children, one of whom has cancer, who were deported from Louisiana, where they live, to Honduras. We asked Secretary Noem about that family when she testified in front of the Homeland Security Committee not long ago. Secretary Noem stated under oath that the mother of those children had consented to having those U.S. citizen children deported. Is that correct or not?
Unfortunately not. The mother was actively saying that her child has cancer and that she did not want him deported. Her attorney was just outside. She was asking to speak to her attorney and to explore her options. The attorney was asking to speak to her. None of these things were true. She did not at any time consent to having her children taken with her. And she was not given an opportunity to do so. She was not asked a question about whether or not they were coming with her.
And this is not going to go away. Secretary Noem said under oath that the mother had consented. She also said under oath that she had documentation that the mother had consented. So if she lied under oath, we are going to hold her accountable. By the way, Congressman Swalwell and I have followed up with the Secretary's office numerous times now to ask for that purported documentation. They have not provided any. You also stated that the family's attorney was in the same building, but they were not allowed to see that attorney. My understanding is that particularly when children are involved, ICE's own regulations require that access to counsel be provided before a child is deported. Is that correct?
Yes, and in fact, ICE's own policies require that more time be given for families to make arrangements. They require special provisions, such as, for example, advance notice where possible, and access to counsel and an opportunity to sort of make decisions about the care of children, and none of these things happened in that situation.
So the children were deported without parental consent, without access to legal counsel. This goes against ICE's own policies. Can you just talk a little bit again about this child with cancer? I mean, is the child able to get the level of treatment that they need in Honduras in order to cure this disease?
The child is not able to get that care in Honduras and has to get it here. He's following a course of treatment.
And the second family that were deported under similar conditions, I believe one of them had a 2-year-old U.S. citizen child. Same situation, the parents did not give consent in that case, is that right?
Yes, that's right. And in fact, the father had made arrangements for a custodian to get the child, and the child was not released to the legal custodian.
Alejandro, did your father have any criminal record before he was so violently detained by ICE?
No, he had no criminal record.
How's he doing?
He's doing better, but he's still scared. He's still traumatized from everything that happened.
And I think for him and for so many others who've been caught up in this, the trauma of what they've gone through, unfortunately, is going to stick with them for a long time, and that's one of the real tragedies of all of this. I'll yield back.
Thank you, Congressman Magaziner. I now would like to yield to Congressman Goldman for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman Ramirez. Congressman Magaziner is exactly right. Donald Trump has lied to the American people. He duped them. He hoodwinked them. He said he was going after criminals, rapists, gang members, and that's who he would be deporting. That is absolutely false. And there is now study after study that has shown that the vast majority of immigrants who have been detained in order to be deported had not only had no criminal convictions, but have not been charged with any crimes. The Cato Institute on June 20th released a report saying 65% of people taken by ICE had no convictions, 93% had no violent convictions. And just today, the city in New York City released a very detailed evaluation of what is going on at 26 Federal Plaza, with which Ms. Ostolaza had talked about, and we will talk about in a second. the average length of stay of individuals who have been staying there through mid-June is 102 hours. And some people have spent as many as 8 days or more, and I think Ms. Ostolaza has talked about anecdotal evidence of people staying even longer than that. And they also analyzed the number of the people who have been kept there, and of the 1,453 people imprisoned inside that building in May and June, 67% have not been convicted or charged with any crimes. Ms. Ostolaza, you mentioned in your opening statement and your testimony, and Congresswoman Ramirez, I think, did a very good job of documenting that so many of these immigrants who are being rounded up are pursuing legal pathways to immigration in this country. Can you explain a little bit about your clients who are following the law and going through the proper channels to immigrate to this country, who are being detained against the law?
Yes, absolutely. It is a really new scenario that we're seeing when so many people are detained, as I mentioned, at their court hearings, right? Like right when they go to try to get asylum, to appear, even if, for example, the government is trying to take them out of the removal proceedings process and put them into expedited removal proceedings under some theory that they should be allowed to do that. And when judges deny that request, even then they're detained.
So wait, let me just stop you there. The judge denies the request by the government to dismiss the case, which would at least temporarily void their asylum claim, meaning that the asylum claim is still pending, right?
Correct.
And at that point, nonetheless detained, even though they are lawfully pursuing asylum.
Correct. That is the highest number of clients that we're seeing is from that group of people. I will say followed by people who are detained at their check-ins with ICE or with ISAP, the contractor.
Right. And this is at court hearings. It's amazing. I want to just in my last minute ask you a little bit about another very troubling circumstance. More than 100 detainees have been transferred in New York City to the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, which is also in my district. One of the most inhuman and horrific federal prisons in the country that is now detaining nonviolent, non-criminal, non-charged immigrants. What do you know about the people who are transferred there?
Well, we're trying to learn more. We have many people who are seeking help, who are seeking representation that we're trying to reach, and we're slowly making it into contact with them, but we've had a lot of hurdles to even understand what are the options for them, who they are, and actually have a fulsome meeting where we can start their
Are you
cases.
aware, have you gotten any reports of the conditions in the MDC for the immigrant detainees?
Yeah, I overall, like the facilities, MDC, it's notoriously bad conditions, and that it doesn't change for the immigration side. But we don't even get to have as full of a picture because we are actively being impeded in providing full representation and really getting those interviews in. Attorneys have been turned away from in-person visits, and phone calls are really limited as well.
Thank you very much, and we've got lots more to discuss, and hopefully we'll get to it later. I yield back.
Unfortunately, we have a lot more to discuss because they are so unaccountable, unlawful, and unconstitutional. I want to now yield another 3 minutes to Congressman Correa for any pending questions he may have.
I have many questions, but for this moment, I wanted to turn very quickly to the issue of U.S. citizens being apprehended. Recently, back home, female attorney walking down street in a park, was apprehended, didn't know who it was that was arresting her, taking her in. She describes it as masked men taking her, putting her in a van with no windows, taking her to a facility with no windows. Total terror. How many of these cases are you seeing of American citizens being apprehended? I know of some that have been held in custody for days and days, and now my constituents back home are advising their American-born citizen children to carry passports. What are we coming to? Due process. I remember when I was a kid, I was profiled many times, stopped, asked my citizenship. I was never apprehended the way people are being apprehended now. So in my 1 minute left, Ms. Shabaya, Mr. Franzl, Ms. Ortola, have you seen this situation back home?
I can tell you that we have definitely been getting a lot of reports of U.S. citizens who are being arrested collaterally. So, for example, they're observing a protest, or they are with someone, or they are just walking down the street. And the incidence of this, it's not like it never happened before, but it's now happening with a level of regularity that is truly alarming and really signals the racial profiling that you were just referencing.
Ms. Ortola, I'm sorry.
Yes. We historically, I think it's an important point to make, aside from some people who might know they're U.S. citizens, they were born here, which was a certainty until, now people are questioning that. But historically, we've had many clients who don't know they're U.S. citizens, or who the United States, they need help to gather all the evidence to show that they're U.S. citizens. And I'm sure if those people are also getting caught in these arrests and without access to counsel to sort out whether they obtain citizenship through their parents, through their grandparents, it's a complex law, and I'm sure U.S. citizens are being
Mr.
deported.
Franzl.
Yeah, just echo. I mean, I think Tom Homan's comments about profiling are illustrative of this. This is
What
why-
were those comments, sir?
He said that ICE does factor in appearance, basically, of people when they are carrying out operations and when they are carrying out arrests. So they interrogate people based on appearance, basically. So it's very clear racial profiling.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the witnesses.
Thank you, Congressman Correa. I now would like to yield 3 minutes to Congresswoman Becca Balint.
I want to thank my colleagues for pulling this together. It's critically important that we shine light on all of the horrors that are happening. And I want to thank the witnesses for coming here today, especially Mr. Branco for courageously coming to tell the story of your father. I know it's not easy, but your bravery gives all of us inspiration to continue to do the work we have to do to fight on behalf of all of the people that are being treated so disrespectfully right now in the United States of America. So Trump is finding out what every modern president already knew. You cannot detain and deport your way to a better immigration system. Real reform takes time. It takes planning. It takes, shockingly, working with Congress. And what's happening right now is messy, it's unlawful, it is, quite frankly, an authoritarian exercise. It's about generating fear. It's a terror campaign. And the Department of Homeland Security, as we've talked about today, is completely and totally out of control. ICE has become a paramilitary force, and our Republican colleagues just infused it with billions and billions of more dollars so they can continue their terror campaign. It operates completely lawlessly without any accountability, with masks, no ID, unmarked cars. You've all talked about it today. It's all deeply, deeply disturbing. And I want to focus on the aspect that others have touched on, the aspect of racial profiling. So if I could, Ms. Shabaya, is it legal for the police to use racial profiling in law enforcement?
It is not.
And what damage does it do when we racially profile?
I think it's hard to overstate because it does damage to the particular individual who is profiled. It also does damage to the community because people are terrorized and they think that if they look a certain way or are from a certain country or have an accent, that they are going to be targeted. And it also does damage to the enforcement authorities themselves because the people who are engaging in this behavior are losing a fundamental and critical aspect of human empathy and respect for others. And I think that we are really underestimating how damaging this is for all of us, like for everyone, for the perpetrators and for the people who are subjected to this behavior.
I am so glad that you mentioned that because that is something that I've been thinking about in earnest in the last few weeks. We are not just dehumanizing these immigrants, these migrants, these people seeking refuge here, these people who are seeking asylum. We, through this process that my Republican colleagues are enabling, we are dehumanizing the people who are perpetrating the violence on these people. They are losing their humanity. They are losing their compassion and empathy. And this is something that has happened the world over, right? This is not a surprise. This is what happens. People forget their own humanity, and that is to the detriment of all of us. I see that my time has expired. I cannot thank you enough for spending the time with us today. We're not letting this go. We're not letting it go. I yield back.
Thank you, Congresswoman Becca Ballin. It is why we're here. We're not letting it go. Thank you. I want to now yield to Congresswoman Dexter for the next 3 minutes of questions.
Thank you. I want to echo my thanks and gratitude to my colleagues for holding us together today. And to Alejandro, thank you for your courage, for coming forward. I can only imagine how terrifying it must be not only to go through this, but then to relive it here with us. For weeks, one of my constituents, Jackie Merlos, was detained with her 4 U.S. citizen children in a Customs and Border Protection facility at the northern border. And I want to highlight what I believe is a opportunity, I guess, that's being used or weaponized by our CBP agents to hold U.S. citizens against their will with family from our northern border. She and her husband, Jackie went to the border with her mother, who was here legally from Honduras, to see their sister and grandchildren who are Canadian legal residents. And they were detained at the border and kept against their will for 2 weeks with their children, or with her children in a windowless cell. They were denied due process because of, again, an assertion similar to my colleague, Representative Magaziner's family, that she had agreed to voluntary return. We have not, and the assertion is, which is legally valid, I believe, that if she had agreed, which is not yet clear, to a voluntary return, that she had no right to counsel and had no right for her congressional representative to be able to meet with her. So Ms. Shabaya, and I just want to underline, like Jackie and her husband, who also was detained a few days later by ICE, they have no criminal history. They have deferred action status. They're going through the legal protocols that we've assigned. They pay taxes, go to church, are small business owners. They are the kind of Oregonians and Americans that we all want to live in community with. So, Ms. Shabaya, I know you've encountered cases like Jackie's. We've just discussed them. What are the legal as well as the moral lines that are being crossed here? And what can we do to stop it? And really thinking about CBP in particular in this loophole, I think, that is being weaponized.
I think one really critical question to ask ourselves is what are the conditions for consensually or sort of knowingly making a decision, like, oh, I will take voluntary return, or, oh, I want my children to be here, not there. We are seeing a complete deprivation of the circumstances in which people can even begin to make a voluntary or consensual choice. And I think that is actually undermining of the loophole that they say they are using. I don't even believe that it's true that there should be no access to counsel whatsoever in those circumstances, although CBP does assert that that is the case. But I also think that fundamentally depriving people of the opportunity to speak to their loved ones or to even take the time to make a decision with knowledge of their options, that is something that I think is deeply troubling. Because if they were certain that they could deport this person, why would they not give them a chance to consider their options? I mean, you have to ask yourself that question. And I think that that shows that they are really just ramming people through the process, less than 24 hours, like putting them through a situation where they don't even know that they have options available to them. And I think that that is not just unlawful, but also deeply problematic from a human perspective and from a moral standpoint.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. Now I'd like to yield to Congressman Raul Ruiz for 3 minutes.
Thank you so much, Congressman Ramirez. It's just heartbreaking to hear the stories of a lot of the non-criminal, non-violent immigrants being violently treated and detained. It's worrisome when an administration demonizes immigrants, knowing very well that statistics and studies have shown that the immigrant population is less violent than native-born populations by far, but yet use it to justify their horrendous treatment towards them. And the concern is that the violation of due process rights, if it begins with immigrant, can lead to citizens, and in fact we're starting to see this spread over into citizens as well. Alejandro, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your service. There's a constituent of mine who also served in the Kabul evacuation, Corporal Hunter Lopez, who was killed. Do you remember him?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it was such a tragedy. Your brothers also served in the Marines?
Yes, they're still on active duty.
They're still so they're serving our country now?
Yes.
And was your father very proud of all three of your sons for serving in the Marines?
Always. He always bragged about it to all his friends.
So he was proud that his sons were serving our great country and serving in the Marines, defending our rights and liberties. And was he, how is he doing now?
He's doing better, but he's still scared, very traumatized, and overall just disappointed, I believe.
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Orange County,
in Orange County?
Yep.
And can you describe what happened to him?
Yeah, so he was approached by masked men, weapons out, and was eventually chased into a busy intersection to where they tackled him, punched him repeatedly in the neck and head area, and then handcuffed him and threw him into the back of an unmarked vehicle.
Did those men identify themselves as ICE?
No, they didn't.
And so there's armed men chasing your father. They did not identify him, and your father ran. I'm sure he was scared, correct?
Yes, he was confused. He didn't know who they were, why they were there for him. I mean, he had never done anything wrong.
Okay. And no criminal record in the past?
No.
And his three sons served in the Marines?
Yes.
And he was violently detained?
Yes.
And how long was he detained for?
For about 3 weeks.
For about 3 weeks. I wish your father well. I wish your family well. Thank you for serving our country, and we're here for you. We're here for him. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to now yield to Congressman Carter for 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today, and thank you for your continued advocacy. Like many Americans, I'm deeply troubled by the cruel and profoundly un-American mass deportation agenda being undertaken by Donald Trump and his allies. These harsh policies are not about public safety or border security. We have seen children torn from their parents, a flagrant disregard for basic due process protections, and individuals targeted for exercising their First Amendment rights. Congress must uphold the rights of all people in the United States. We need immigration policies rooted in dignity, fairness, and due process, not cruelty and authoritarianism. Mr. Barranca, thank you for your service to our country in the Marine Corps. My wife is a military soldier as well. Just this month, Marines were deployed in Florida, Texas, and my home state, Louisiana, to assist ICE in detention centers. Can you tell us from your experience, how these soldiers may feel with these new duties?
Yes, I believe that many of them would feel confused, hurt, and just sad about everything that's going on. I served with a lot of Marines who are of Latino backgrounds and whose parents and family members, some of them are still undocumented.
Is this what you and your fellow Marines envisioned when you signed up to protect and to serve our country?
I never thought it would. I never thought it would involve this.
Ms. Ransbloh, Mr. Ransbloh, do you believe it's necessary for ICE agents to wear masks? If ICE agents wear masks, why don't regular police officers wear them? If they claim that it's for their protection, we know that federal agents of all sorts deliver subpoenas, they make arrests, they do raids, many of which don't wear masks. Yet we see ICE agents across our country wearing masks with no identifying badges or information to declare that they are in fact duly sworn officers. Share with us the danger. Is this proper?
No, it is quite dangerous. It puts everyone further at risk. I mean, we've seen people impersonating ICE, wearing masks and saying that they're ICE, and then carrying out abuses against other people. But no, it puts communities at more risk when you have masked agents, federal agents, that should be identifying themselves, going into communities and carrying out sweeping operations like this.
We heard in testimony last week in Homeland Security, several of the people that were testifying indicated that they had to do this because their lives were at risk because of the jobs they were doing. We push back and absolutely disagree with such an assertion that if this were the case, everyone would wear masks. Of course, we know that isn't true. We know that there are people that are perpetrating, acting as if they're ICE agents, committing horrific crimes against our people in our country. And we know that this is wrong. And I want to applaud my colleagues for having this shadow hearing so we can have an opportunity to have unfettered access to bringing these things to light so the American people will know that we are fighting for them even though our opposing side of the aisle seems to be complicit in working with these horrible actions. Ms. Shabea, thank you for your work, particularly representing the mother of our children, one of whom had cancer, who were detained in my hometown in April in New Orleans. In that case, ICE was aware before deporting the children that there were legal custodians and family members who were ready and willing to care for them here in America, but ICE deported the children anyway, possibly putting the child's health at risk. Why do you believe ICE still deported this child, and was this an act of intimidation?
In 15 seconds.
We are seeing this as filling the planes and the terror effect. So if they have like 2 or 3 spots and they have someone available, they will take them in order to fill a plane that's going to a certain location. And the fact that it's so horrible is intentional because they want people to be scared.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Congressman Carter. And now I'd like to yield 3 minutes to Congressman Chuy Garcia.
Thank you, Congresswoman Ramirez, to the other members of the committee for providing this forum to discuss a greatly concerning issue, and that is the unconstitutional, lawless, and terrorist actions of ICE agents across the country. This is a pattern, of course, of misconduct and impunity. And, of course, we are saddened, but very glad that Alejandro is here today to share what a Marine veteran has experienced along with people from all walks of life across the country. Given that I have 3 minutes, I want to skip some of my remarks about the accelerated growth of the Department of Homeland Security, and now it will be on steroids with all of the unprecedented funding that has been allocated by this Congress. And of course, I want to bring up another issue that highlights the firings of immigration judges. Despite enormous backlogs in the immigration courts, the Trump administration is terminating judges without cause. This includes Jennifer Payton, the assistant chief judge of Chicago's immigration court, who met with Senator Durbin and was fired shortly thereafter. U.S. Senator Durbin. Ms. Shabaya, can you explain why firing immigration judges without cause undermines the immigration system and the rule of law more generally?
I don't know very much about the ins and outs of this, but one thing I will say from an outside perspective is that it undermines any semblance that this is an actual court of law where people are going to get any kind of unbiased adjudication when the process is politicized in this way.
Thank you. Finally, I want to come back to you, Alejandro. I read an article in which you were quoted as saying, and I quote, "We're willing to give all this for this country, and then they take our parents like this. I don't think it's fair." I think this reality gets at the heart of the inhumanity that we're seeing. And I wanted to ask if you could expand on those remarks you made.
Yeah, I just personally don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right how myself and my brothers and many other service members will do anything for this country. And then when we come home, or how my brothers are not even home when all of this is happening, while they're doing their service honorably and doing the best they could, it's not right, and I don't think it's fair at all.
Thank you very much. Know, Alejandro, that we stand with you. We stand with your brothers and your family, your brothers on active duty, as you have shared. And of course, all the other people whose rights are being violated by this rogue, lawless agency. Thank you again to the members who organized this forum. And we continue to shine a spotlight to reverse this, to halt these practices, to show the unfairness and, of course, the lawlessness that needs to be ended, whether it's people being profiled, agents wearing masks, or descending on people and beating them without identifying what their purpose is, who they are, and where people are being abducted to. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Congressman Garcia. And our last member of Congress with questions will be Congressman Tanador for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Congresswoman Ramirez, and also want to thank my colleagues, Congressman Magaziner and Congressman Goldman, for hosting this important hearing. Thank you, all our witnesses, for being here, sharing with us your stories so bravely. I was 24 years old, living in poverty in India, got an admission into a education program, a PhD program, and I came here as a student on a student visa. I've experienced many of these things personally. I won't go into a lot of details, but the searches and unfair questioning and intimidation is something that I personally firsthand experienced. And what we're seeing here now is just so much hate. In his first, at the 45th, spread a lot of hate, and in 47th, there's just no limit to the hate, and now the funding to do this intimidation and hate that we're seeing all across. One of the bills that I've co-sponsored is to ensure that ICE cannot wear a mask, that they identify themselves, show who they are. This is a country, our greatness of our country is because of our history of welcoming immigrants who came to this country, gave so much. I personally started businesses, created hundreds and thousands of jobs, impacted our economy to a great extent. So does many other immigrants do. And what we need is fix our broken immigration system, have a strong legal immigration system where people can get processing done done quickly. Today I'm seeing people waiting in line for 10 years, 15 years. It's so stressful for people, their families, to get their green card processed, their visas processed. We are hugely understaffed in terms of processing, in terms of judges. And I would like to see the DHS funding go more towards processing and streamlining our immigration process so we can welcome immigrants, make this path easier. I talked to a lot of CEOs, technology CEOs. I talked to a lot of business people who depend heavily on immigrants. They depend heavily in immigrants for innovation, for discoveries, for sustaining their businesses. And this current environment of hate, this current environment of intimidation of immigrants is not putting America first. This is putting us back. We are now more going to protect our innovation. We're not going to protect our discoveries and our businesses. So I'm not going to take much of time. I think I'm out of time. So I just want to thank all of you, and thanks for this hearing, and we'll keep fighting on.
Thank you, Congressman Tanadar. I want to, as we prepare to complete this Congressional Oversight Forum, I want to yield to Congressman Seth Magaziner, who worked with me along with Congressman Goldman to put together this hearing together, to give some closing remarks.
I want to just offer some praise, certainly to Congresswoman Ramirez, my friend and partner on the Homeland Security Committee, along with Congressman Goldman, for their leadership, and also great job keeping us on time, which when you have 10 House members speaking, that is no small feat. To our other colleagues for joining us and speaking so eloquently, but especially to all of you, and to those of you who are in the audience who are working in this space. It takes incredible courage to speak up and to put your time and energy into protecting those who are being targeted in an environment like this. I never thought when I came to Congress 2.5 years ago that I would be spending more time on immigration and border security issues than probably any other issue. Coming from Rhode Island, we're not a border state. We have a growing immigrant population, but not nowhere near as large as some of my colleagues here. And I'm here, and I think many of us are here because the times that we are in demand it. And what is happening right now is just plain wrong. We're all for immigration enforcement and smart border security, but the targeting of innocent people who are just trying to work hard and make a living, the targeting of the elderly, of the sick, of U.S. citizens, of students by an anonymous army of masked men is not who we are as a country. And Alejandro, you and your family deserve so much better than this. Your clients, the children that you all represent, deserve so much better than this. And if there's one message I would like everybody here to come away with, I know that this is a time that is scary and distressing, but you have a lot of friends here in Congress. You have people who are standing with you and fighting for you, and the American public as well. Coming from a district, a middle-of-the-road district where Donald Trump got like 47% of the vote, I can tell you that there are a lot of middle-of-the-road Americans, even Americans who voted for Trump, who are seeing what is happening right now and do not approve of it and do not like it. So continue to speak up, continue to do your work, because the American people are on your side. And I'll yield back.
Thank you, Congressman Magaziner. I want to thank all the members of Congress who came. I want to thank Congresswoman Becca Balint and Congressman Raul Ruiz for staying to the end of it as well. Your presence here, your work, and the commitment of every member that is here really speaks to where we are in this moment and how critical your courageous leadership is. So I want to thank you for that. And again, I want to thank Congressman Seth Magaziner, who approached me and said, it's time for us to do a hearing. and really worked with us to make sure that today was possible, an opportunity to really have a clear conversation of what is happening and this unaccountable, unlawful, and unconstitutional actions by Secretary Noem under Department of Homeland Security under the Trump administration. And I want to thank Congressman Goldman for his work on this too and his work in the committee. And I want to echo what Congressman Seth Magaziner said to our witnesses today. You are experiencing and living all that is wrong with this moment. Alejandro, I cannot imagine what it's like to be a Marine, to have a father who has bragged about you being in service for this country along with your brothers, and that same institution that his 3 children were willing to die for would be the same institution that would be turned around and made into making your father, your family, a public enemy of this country. I can't imagine what that feels like every single day. I can't imagine what it looks like and feels like for Marines that swore an oath to defend this country now have to take on that oath and apparently defend the country against their own family members who came to this country for a better life and gave birth to the children who are giving their life for this country. So I want to thank you for being here and for your powerful testimony. In the last hour and a half of this first CHS Oversight Forum, we have built the case that President Trump, that Secretary Noem are unclear about the rule of law in our Constitution. And although they're unclear, they're also doing this intentionally because they think they can get away with it. So I want to remind them, the judiciary is a co-equal branch of government, and the executive branch is required to honor decisions made by the highest court of the land. Congress, we are a co-equal branch of government, and the executive branch is required to honor legislation and appropriations duly authorized by Congress. Members of Congress can and will conduct oversight of detention centers without previous notice, according to Public Law 116-93, reaffirmed in Public Law at 118/47. Everyone on U.S. soil has equal protection under the law and the right to due process protected by the 14th and 5th Amendments of the Constitution. So Secretary Noem, read the Constitution. These are the fundamentals and are not up for debate. The lawlessness, the lack of accountability, and the unconstitutionality with which Trump, Noem, Holman, Miller, DHS, and ICE behave send a clear message that they do not respect the rule of law or the Constitution. Unlawful, unaccountable, unconstitutional, those are the qualities of authoritarians and their terror forces. They want to confuse us. They want to rob us from our hope. They want to paralyze us with fear. They want to break us. But we know better. Our communities know better. We are informed, we are organized, and we are resisting. Because we understand that the unlawful actions used against immigrants today will be the same ones they use tomorrow on anyone they consider undesirable. Because we know that fascism always demands a public enemy. And because we believe in due process, because we believe in the rule of law and the Constitution, because we believe in our democracy in checks and balances and accountability, we believe upholding our civil and human rights ensures our collective safety. It is why we will continue to conduct these forums to shine a light on what is happening in our districts and to the people that we love. We, members of Congress, have the power to do so. And we will continue to oppose an agenda that attempts to demonize children of immigrants in this country. And let me be very clear. We're going to continue the way that Congressman Ruiz has, the way that Congressman Garcia has, the way that Congressman Davis has, Congressman Carter and others, showing up to detention centers and demanding that the Trump administration allow us, actually not allow us, we have the authority, open those darn doors because we demand to exercise our right to oversight. We're going to hold all of those who have perpetrated violence against our communities accountable. It is our responsibility, and it is what our constituents elected us to do. We're going to take off the mask, And we're going to defund these administration's terror force. And more importantly, we're going to fight for comprehensive, humane immigration reform that honors the communities that make this country great. I want to again thank our panelists. I want to thank our colleagues. I want to thank Congressman Goldman, who has come back as a closing and as we prepare to do a little bit of after work here. But let me say this. And Congressman Goldman often flusters our colleagues in committee. Because, you know, when people are trying to get away with breaking the law and you call them out, they tend to get flustered and scared and all of a sudden want to end committee hearings. We will not stop doing our work. I want to thank every one of you that is on the line. Because oftentimes Congresswoman Salinas says we have to make sure that we legislate, y'all have to litigate, and our constituents have to continue to do the mobilization and agitate. So thank you for your work. This forum is now adjourned, and we look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.